Happy Mother's Day. We want to take a minute right here at the very beginning and say thank you to all of the moms out there. Now, this Mother's Day is obviously unlike any Mother's Day that any of us have experienced. And we have a couple of different groups as a result. Some of you are moms of kids who are living at home. And you have had the last 6 to 8 weeks where you have been in very close proximity to your children, where you have been trying to help them continue on in their schoolwork. Many of you have been working from home while you've been doing that and trying to keep a house in one piece and keep everybody fed while everybody is at home. And it has not been easy to be a mom with kids at home over this season. But I also know that if you're a mom whose kids have moved away, who don't live at home, it also hasn't been an easy season because you haven't been able to see them. You haven't been able to get together for dinner. You haven't been able to talk to grandkids. And so I know that this Mother's Day is not the easiest one. But whatever group you are in, we wanted to take a minute and say, Happy Mother's Day.
Mother's Day looks a lot different this year.
Mommy needs a quarantine.
And our moms may be spending a lot of time with their kids right now. A lot. Like, so much time. And even though they love their kids to the moon and back,
Mommy, where are you going?
sometimes moms need a little alone time.
Mommy!
You know, to recharge.
Go talk to Daddy. Mommy! Where are you? Are you in there? Mommy! We can see you. Up and up!
I just wanna lie in the sun. Whoa, lie in the sun.
But no matter what's happening in the world, their favorite way to spend time is with their family.
But now my only win is now, and my only wear is when I'm by your side.
In good times, in hard times,
Mom! You're breaking everything!
in uncertain times. Thank you, Mom, for making time for us every single day.
Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for today. I ask that you would watch over us as we go to bed and rest, that you would speak to us in Bible stories and speak to us in
Good morning, River Tree.
Good morning.
Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, all the stepmothers, all the sort of mothers, all the motherly figures.
Bonus mothers.
Bonus mothers, that's a good one. Happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you.
I'm Nick.
I'm Dee Dee. This
We
is
almost
Nigel.
talked over each other there.
What?
I know, crazy.
We would never do that.
So we're going to go through some announcements before we get going with the morning.
All right. Good morning. And if you are new to River Tree, you've joined us virtually, and we'd really like to get to know you a little bit more. So if you would be so kind as to visit rivertree.church/new, and we would love to send you a water bottle.
A River Tree water bottle.
A River Tree water bottle. It's
Yeah, we
super
just
cool.
want to know that you've joined us because there's people we don't know who have joined us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
And you don't even have to be from Jackson.
Yeah, you don't because you're going virtually.
I know.
Awesome.
Super, super cool. All right. So guess what?
Chicken butt.
No. This week is another food drive-through. Last time we served 250 people.
250 people, about 75 to 80 families.
Yeah. So that's awesome, and we're doing that again. So Wednesday, May 13th, from 3 to 6 at the River Tree Building, which is 3113 Lansing Avenue. We invite you, if you have a need for food or know someone who has a need for food, to come drive through, and we will hook you up with some awesome food through our gas to groceries fund.
Yep. There's plenty of food. Last time we did this, it was very busy at the beginning. Feel free to show up anytime during that 3 to 6 window. You might find it actually quicker to get through there if you come a little later. So anytime between 3 to 6, drive down the big hill into the parking lot and pick up some food. So I know that people may be wondering when we are going to be able to meet in person again. The River Tree Board has been working with our ministry leaders and whatnot at what it will look like to reintroduce human interaction gatherings, in-person gatherings, but we will definitely be meeting virtually through the end of May. The stay-at-home order was extended until May 28th this week. We had already talked about the fact that we would be meeting virtually at least till the end of May. So we're working on a plan on what that looks like, and we want to do it safe and we want to do it responsibly, but we also want to make sure at some point we have the opportunity to gather with the church again. You know,
I like my people.
A lot of people like their people. So we have a plan in place. We have a process that the board's working through, and just stay tuned, but know that we will meet in this setting through the end of May for sure. Giving, we thank you for continuing to be faithful in your tithes and gifts. You can give by texting the amount you want to give to 84321. You can also mail a check to the church at 3113 Lansing Ave. We give the address a lot lately.
We do.
I feel like I haven't said the address in like 10 years of doing announcements, and we say the address a lot now. But you can also mail a check to 3113 Lansing Ave. You remember, we still got the gas to groceries going. If you want to give to that fund as well, just put G2G after the giving amount when you text to give. Or, I mean, if you want to give to gas to groceries, you can just write on that memo line of your check, this much is my gift or tithe, this much goes to gas to groceries, and we'll get it all designated correctly as well.
Yeah.
So, have a great week, everybody. Enjoy Mother's Day. Enjoy Andy's message today on serving selflessly and what that looks like as a river treer. You got anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
I got nothing.
Okay, awesome. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.
You are my everything, and I will adore
struck wonder just at the mention of your name. Jesus, your name is power, breath and living water, such a marvelous mystery.
And here I am, down on my knees again, surrendering all, surrendering all. And find me here, Lord, as you draw me near. I'm desperate for you. I'm desperate for you. I surrender. Drench my soul as mercy and grace unfold. I hunger and thirst. I hunger and thirst. With arms stretched wide, I know you hear my cry. Speak to me now. Speak to me now. I surrender. I surrender. I want to know you more. I want to know you more. I surrender. I surrender. I want to know you more. I want to know you more. surrender. I wanna know you more. I wanna know you more. I surrender.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, you have taught me to say, it is well, it is well with my soul. It is well, it is well, through the storms I am held. It is well, it is well with my soul. My sin, oh the bliss of this glorious thought. My sin not in part, but the whole is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, oh my soul. It is well, through the storms I am held. It is well with my soul. It is well, God has won, Christ prevailed. It is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when the faith shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back as a scroll, the trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well, through the storms I am held. It is well with my soul. It is well, God has won, Christ prevailed. It is well with my soul. It is well.
This morning we are wrapping up our vision series, where we have been looking at who we are becoming as a church. We started off the very first week and we looked at our story. We looked at what God has done to bring us to where we are today. And then over the last several weeks, we've been unpacking our vision statement. We talk about who we want to become by using 3 very short statements. We say that we want to become people who love recklessly, who live passionately, and who serve selflessly. And so 2 weeks ago, we unpacked what we mean when we talk about loving recklessly. That we receive and internalize the love of God, and that we're expressions of that love to our community and our world. Last week, we talked about what we mean when we say that we want to be people who live passionately. We talked about identifying and pursuing God-given gifts and dreams and abilities. This morning, we want to wrap things up by talking about what we mean when we say we want to be people who serve selflessly. And we have an explanation for that as well, and it's very simply that we don't live life for ourselves. We don't live life for ourselves. We're going to look at an example from the life of Jesus, but before we do that, I want us to just look at a passage that tells us about the attitude of Jesus when it came to this idea of serving. This is from Philippians chapter 2, and it starts with verse 5. It says this, it says, "You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being." Now, I want you for a minute to picture this. So here is Jesus. And there is something we need to understand about the nature of Jesus to understand this passage, and that is that Jesus is God. When we talk about God, there is one God, but we talk about God in terms of a trinity, that there are 3 persons that make up this one being. We refer to them as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And when we say Son, we're talking about Jesus. Now, Jesus didn't just appear on the scene in the New Testament. In fact, we know from the book of John that at the very beginning of everything, when everything was created, that Jesus was an integral part of that process. That God has always been made up of these 3 persons. And so we have Jesus, who is God and was with God in the beginning, who has all of the components of God, all of the power of being God. And he gives that up to be born as a human being. He gives up being all powerful and needs to have his diaper changed. I mean, that's a really dramatic step down. And that was the attitude of service that Jesus exemplified for us. That he went from being in heaven to having his diaper changed, and then from there living on this earth, ministering on this earth, and dying on a cross. Before he died, they had this Last Supper together. And I want to read to you from John chapter 13, verses 1 through 5. Before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. It was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, and that he had come from God and would return to God. So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around him. I want to unpack this for just a moment, because our initial response when we read this is to think, oh, that was nice of Jesus. It was a nice thing to do. But I want us to understand more of what's going on here. So in the time of Jesus, the first thing to understand is that you walked everywhere. You walked to go to the store. You walked to go to your friend's house. You walked to go to the synagogue. You walked everywhere. So that's one piece. Today, we walk from the house to the car, and then we drive, and then we get out and we walk from the car into wherever it is that we're going. So first of all, they walked everywhere. The second thing, though, is that they shared the road with animals. And so there were donkeys and horses and sheep and chickens that would have been using these same roadways. And animals don't know how to use the outhouse. Animals just go when they gots to go. And that means that it's going to end up on the road with you. Many years ago now, I had the opportunity to go to the Moscow Circus in Moscow. And there was a person who had what I think was probably one of the worst jobs in the world at that circus. His job was to hold a big bucket. And if an elephant that was on stage started to poop, it was his job to run out with the bucket and catch the poop before it hit the stage. That was this person's job. He was the poop bucket holder. And it's because the elephants, they don't use an outhouse. They are just going to go when they've got to go. And so in Jesus' day, you walked everywhere and you shared the road with animals. And so the road was covered in dirt and in dung and was just kind of a gross collection of things. And you wore sandals. You had kind of a platform to them and then straps that held that on, but your feet at the end of the day were gross. And so it was a part of tradition that you washed your feet before dinner. So you probably grew up and your mom said, hey, wash your hands, it's time to eat. Kids, your parents probably still say this, hey, everybody wash your hands, it's time for dinner. It was a part of culture that you washed not just your hands, but you also washed your feet because your feet were pretty gross. But you didn't wash just your feet. So there was a hierarchy of who was supposed to wash feet. If there was a servant in the house, it was the servant's job to wash everybody's feet. If there wasn't a servant and there were children, kids, it would have been your job to wash everybody's feet. Imagine washing your mom and your dad's feet every night. If there were no servants and no kids, then it was the job of a woman in the house. If there were no servants and no kids and no women, and it was just a gathering of adult men, then what happened was that the person with the lowest social standing was the one that washed the feet. And in Jesus' day, that was conversation that was had. People tried to decide where they were in social standing. You see this in arguments that Jesus' disciples had with each other in other parts of his ministry. And so think about this. The disciples, when they got together for that meal, realized it was time to wash feet. They looked around and they didn't see any servants. They didn't see any kids. They didn't see any women. And they realized that one of them was going to have to wash the feet. And one at a time, each one of them said, not it. Someone else is going to have to wash my feet. I'm not washing feet. And in that moment, Jesus himself stepped forward. With that in mind, I just want to read to you a few of those verses again. Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, and that he had come from God and would return to God. So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around him. If there was ever somebody in a room full of people who shouldn't have had to wash feet, it was Jesus. Again, you were looking for the person of lowest social standing, and what we just read said that the Father had given Jesus authority over everything. Not just, over everything. And yet here he is in this room full of people and he washes feet. As we talk about serving selflessly, I want us to unpack this for just a minute, because one of the things that's important to process, that actually I think is probably one of the most important things to process, is the difference between being somebody who serves and being a servant. You see, when you are somebody who serves, you do good things. Maybe you give when you see a need on Facebook. Somebody posts a GoFundMe page and there's a need that strikes a chord with you and you give to that. Maybe you occasionally go to the Interfaith Shelter and serve a meal. Maybe there's somebody who needs help moving and you go and you help them move. Those are good things, and that somebody who serves will do those things. But here's the thing, When you are somebody who serves, you also are going to choose who you serve and when you serve. So for instance, over here, you are going to be worried about whether or not the person you are serving is worthy of being served. You're going to have that in your mind. Is this somebody who I like? Is this somebody who is somebody that really should be served in this moment? Somebody who is a servant isn't going to be worried about those conversations. Somebody who is a servant is just worried about serving. So over on this side of things, and I've spent time over here. This isn't me pointing fingers at anybody but myself. There have been seasons where I was more worried about whether or not somebody was worthy of being served in that moment. So we have people that stop by River Tree. Well, they do when the building is open and we're not in the middle of a pandemic. But people stop by on a semi-regular basis asking for help with different things. Sometimes it will be a tank of gas. Sometimes it will be some groceries. Sometimes some money for a prescription. And we do our best to help in those moments. And so somebody will come and they'll share a story of what's going on in their lives and say, hey, I'm in need of gas. And I'll say, okay, meet me at the Shell station at the corner and I'll fill your car with gas. Now, there are times when their story doesn't make a lot of sense. And there's times where I wonder if they really need it. But here's the thing. If I'm going to be a servant, I'm not going to be as worried about being that gatekeeper and me trying to be the decision maker for who is worthy of being served. I want to point out something from this instance in the life of Jesus. So Jesus is there with his disciples, and Jesus washes everybody's feet. That includes Judas. Judas is the person who is about to betray Jesus. Judas is the person who helps the religious leaders find and arrest Jesus so that Jesus can then be killed. Jesus is betrayed by one of his closest friends. Jesus knows that's going to happen, and he serves Judas anyway. He washes Judas's feet in this moment. So when we are a servant, we're not worried about whether somebody is worthy of being served. C.S. Lewis had an encounter that really helped me in this. So C.S. Lewis was walking in downtown London one evening with a friend, and there was somebody there on the side of the road asking for money. And C.S. Lewis gave the person some money. And as they were walking away, his friend looked at C.S. Lewis and said, Why did you do that? They're just going to waste it on alcohol and tobacco. And C.S. Lewis looked at his friend and said, That's all I was going to do with it. Sometimes we get too caught up in whether or not somebody is worthy. And then here's the other component. When we are someone who serves, we also are the ones who decide when and where we will serve. We serve when it's convenient for us, when it's not going to cost us too much. But somebody who is a servant is somebody who is going to serve regardless of whether they like the person, regardless of whether they think that person is worthy of being served, and they're going to serve when and where the need is, not when and where it's convenient for them. There's a big difference between someone who serves and someone who takes on the posture of a servant. And when we talk about serving selflessly, we are talking about taking on that servant posture. And so we take on the posture of a servant and we begin to serve, and we serve each other. We serve people that are inside of the faith family, inside of River Tree, and we serve people in our community and in our world. We serve our neighbors and our coworkers and our friends and our family members. Again, regardless of whether we like them or not, regardless of whether we think they are worthy of being served or not, we're going to be people who serve. Last week, I read to you from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7. And I want to read to you this verse again. It says this, it says, a spiritual gift is given to each of us so we can help each other. So we can help each other. Last week I mentioned that phrase, so we can help each other, comes from a Greek word that is symphero. And it's a word picture that is carrying a common load. And I talked about carrying a couch and how when you carry a couch, you need several people on that couch because the load is too big, it's too heavy for any one person to be able to carry it. Another image that I think of when I think of Semphiro is that of rocket engines. And this picture that I want to show you is of a Falcon Heavy rocket. Now, space nerd alert, here at the end of May, there's a big event that's going to happen, and that is that SpaceX is going to be taking astronauts to the International Space Station for the first time. It'll be the first time since the space shuttle was retired 9 years ago that astronauts will have launched from the United States. But in order to do that, they're going to use something called the Falcon Heavy. The Falcon Heavy has 3 rockets that are tied to each other. And each one of those rockets has 9 engines. So there are 27 engines that are all firing at once that allow that load to be lifted off the ground. That's Semphiro. Each one of those engines is helping to carry a common load. All of us are carrying a load in life. Some seasons the load is heavier than others. And when we see people around us whose load is a little heavier, we reach in and we say, hey, let me help you carry that couch. Let me help you carry this in this moment, that we are going to be actively engaged in looking for opportunities to serve the people around us. Here's the other piece of that, is that we also allow ourselves to be served. I think sometimes it's easier to serve than it is to be served. Our pride gets in the way. We don't want somebody to know that we need help, so we're going to try to do it on our own. I wonder if you've ever lifted something that was maybe heavier than you should have lifted. Tried to carry something up the stairs that you thought, no, I got this, I don't need to get anybody to help me with this. And you get partway up those stairs and you realize that it was a bad idea and that you really should have gotten some help in that moment. There are times when the load of life is so heavy that we just need other people there to lift a corner. But our pride says, no, you shouldn't ask for help. But the fact is that we are designed to help each other. And part of serving is also allowing yourself to be served. A man named Richard Foster, he put it this way. He said, it's an act of submission and service to allow others to serve us. It recognizes their kingdom authority over us. It's an act of submission and service. It may be that in this season you've realized that the load of life is heavier than usual, but you've been hesitant to reach out. I want to encourage you to not allow your pride to get in the way. We've set up this email address, help@rivertree.church. And when you send an email to that, I'll just tell you what happens. It goes to 3 people, myself and 2 others. And it's their job to help make sure that those things don't fall through the cracks, that we meet those needs as best we can. And so I want to encourage you, if you have been feeling like that load is too heavy and you just need some help, please reach out. Maybe you just need somebody to talk to. I know as we've gone through this that I've been seeing and sensing that people are more lonely than usual. We've set up these online connection times that happen every week. And maybe up until this point you thought, no, I'm good. I don't need to get together with other people. I don't need that connection. But we do. We need each other. And so I want to invite you to join me. I'm going to be hosting one this week at 7 p.m. on Tuesday and 9 a.m. on Wednesday. Join me. We've got 2 others that are going to be happening. You can find that schedule on our Facebook page. We usually post the list of them on Monday or Tuesday. And then there's just a link, and you click on that, and you can engage in a video chat. And there's no agenda. We just spend time talking. We spend time sharing what Netflix movies we're enjoying in that particular season. We spend time praying for each other. It may be that what you need in the way of help right now is just some people. So we exist to become people who love recklessly, who live passionately, and who serve selflessly. As we go through this week, I want to encourage you, take on the posture of a servant. Don't be worried about whether someone is worthy of being served or spend a bunch of time trying to do the mental math as to whether or how you're going to serve them and on your terms. Take on that posture of a servant this week. Look for opportunities to serve and look for opportunities this week to allow other people to serve you. I hope you have a fantastic week. I do want to let you know that if you do need my help in any way, allow me to serve you. It's what I'm here for. And so you can email me at andy@rivertree.church. I would love to connect with you. I hope you have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next Sunday.